Good morning and welcome to the Utah Department of Transportation's annual research workshop, known as UTRAC. My name is Cameron Kurgay, and I'm UDOT's Director of Research and Innovation. It's my pleasure to greet you online in a format unlike any other in the 20-year history of this event. And I would like to express my appreciation for your flexibility in advance as we quickly adapted from an in-person workshop to a completely virtual one. With this transition, many of you will notice changes to our typical agenda. We obviously won't be serving a digital lunch, and networking will be much more challenging. But Utah's research community is adaptive and resilient, and with the available technology, I'm sure we can overcome other technical issues this morning and find a productive rhythm for our presentations and discussions that will occur in each of your breakout sessions. This year, we have 150 registered participants who will review over 60 problem statements covering 7 different subjects. For those who have never attended before, we usually meet in a large room for a welcome address and keynote presentation. Then we are given some instructions before breaking into our specific groups for the next few hours. Today's virtual workshop is a streamlined version of that, but one tradition we would like to maintain this morning is the announcement of our annual Trailblazer Award recipient. The Trailblazer Award is given to one of our innovative and dedicated research partners who has displayed an extended commitment to transportation research. After a presentation of this award and a short presentation by our Trailblazer recipient, your subject group leader or research contact will immediately start your breakout session and provide additional instructions. Now, before Jordan Backman, UDOT's Urban Planning Manager, presents the Trailblazer Award, I would like to thank all of you for your contributions and support to identify and solve Utah's transportation challenges. I would also like to thank UDOT's research and innovation professionals and consultant staff for their remarkable efforts to make this a successful workshop. Please enjoy the following award presentation and have a great workshop.
The UTRAC Trailblazer Award for this year is being presented to Dr. Reed Ewing. Reed is a distinguished professor of city and metropolitan planning and the director of the Metropolitan Research Center at the University of Utah. Earlier in his career, he was director of the Voorhees Transportation Center at Rutgers University, research professor at the National Center for Smart Growth, state representative from Northwest Tucson, and analyst at the Congressional Budget Office. He holds master's degrees in engineering and city planning from Harvard University and a PhD in urban planning and transportation systems from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Reed has done extensive research in the area of transportation and land use planning and has contributed to past and current UTRAC studies on this topic. We would like to recognize his contributions by presenting to him the UTRAC Trailblazer Award for 2020.
Hi there. I'm Reed Ewing. I'm a professor of city and metropolitan planning at the University of Utah. I'm also the recipient of the Trailblazer Award this year, which I really appreciate and did not expect. It really should go to my students who do all the work, or to the funding partners who provide the funding that allows me to hire the students who do all the work, like UTA and UDOT. But I won the award. I really appreciate it, and I'm going to describe some of our projects that you have funded in the. So the first one is guidelines for a polycentric region to reduce vehicle use and increase walking and transit use. It was published by the Journal of the American Planning Association very recently. This is polycentric development. I'm flying into DC, look out the window, take this shot. You can see concentrated development around the metro stations, Clarendon, Ballston, Bethesda, so on. Very polycentric metropolitan area. This is polycentric development 2. You'll all recognize this as the Wasatch Choice for 2040 vision, which envisions multiple centers around the region that don't currently exist, at least as full centers, but will in time. Like the purple blobs, by the way, that's why I use 2040 vision rather than 2050 vision. So to get a handle on what constitutes good polycentric development, we looked at 126 regional transportation plans. And we searched for the word center, and it came up repeatedly. 90% of the plans define centers and want to create a polycentric pattern or a monocentric pattern, but only 20% of them get at all quantitative about it. You know, how big is a center? What's the density of a center? Only a small percentage of the plans get specific. So to deal with that dearth of information, we looked at 28 metropolitan regions around the United States. 589 centers were identified. They had 163,000 trips to and from them. We compared households living in centers to households outside centers and found that the VMT was significantly lower for households within centers than those outside, and that walk trips were significantly higher for households living in centers. So these are transportation benefits associated with polycentric. We then did something called a generalized additive modeling to see if there were thresholds that had to be met to get these transportation benefits. In the upper left corner, you can see that walk mode choice, increases significantly at around 20,000 persons per square mile. That's employees or residents, and increases even more at 40,000. And here are the general guidelines or recommendations. Activity density between 10,000 and 25,000, depending on the center type. So that's a target that we will want to meet in this region. And downtown Sandy has about 8,000. So it has a ways to go. So Wasatch Front Regional Council, the individual jurisdictions have a basis for evaluating how well they're doing. The final chapters of the report we wrote for WFRC and National Institute for Transportation and Communities includes case studies. These are qualitative case studies. Portland is the first one. It has 8 regional centers. It has 32 town centers. It is polycentric. And we asked the questions of MPO staff, transit staff, city staff, how did you become so polycentric? And so these chapters have guidelines and strategies and policies that will lead to polycentric development. And I'm hoping that MAG and WFRC find the case studies useful in setting their own policies. And second study is a Varenko station and Station Park in Farmington, TODs versus TADs. It was published in Cities. It starts by saying that the ITE manuals, parking generation, trip generation, are not suitable for evaluating TODs. Data are collected primarily at suburban locations, having little or no transit service, which is the opposite of a TOD. The reason this is important is a lot of the trips generated by TODs are transit trips, not auto trips, walk trips, internal and external, and leaving only the red pie slice that's external vehicle trips. What we're in our work is figure out how big that red slice of pie is. So we looked at initially five exemplary TODs around the country, and sent out students, and they counted cars and counted parking spaces and did interviews and the like to quantify the benefits of TOD. And then we added a couple. Orenco Station, the most famous TOD in the country probably, and Station Park in Farmington, which is not a TOD, but rather a TAD, which is a transit adjacent development. And for the TODs, from our intercept surveys, a very high percentage of the trips are non-automotive, non-automobile, non-car. Up to 70% are walking and transit, except at Station Park, which, as I said, is a TAD, not a TOD. And when you compare vehicle trips that we counted to the ITE trip generation rates, they're 30% below or 65% below. They're generating 65% fewer vehicle trips than typical suburban development. And in terms of parking demand, you can tell from this that relative to the ITE guideline, if you build to the ITE standard or guideline, you will have more than 100% excess parking because TODs don't require that much parking. My final study is the effects of light rail, meaning the tracks extension out to the university on traffic in a travel corridor, meaning 400 South and parallel street. This was done for UTA. It was published in the Journal of Public Transportation. The treatment, this is quasi-experimental, the treatment was the construction of the tracks line out to the University of Utah. We have before measurements, we have after measurements, we've got other streets that we can use as control streets to guess what would have happened in the absence of tracks. You can see that the ADT on 400 South was increasing through about 1999. It had reached over 40,000. Then we began to construct tracks and complete tracks, 2001, 2002, 2003. Meanwhile, tracks ridership is going up on the bottom of the graph, pretty much as the traffic volume goes down, transit ridership goes up on tracks and bus routes. We have different ways of measuring the effect, those different deltas, but they're all substantial. Then we did a trip generation analysis to see how many additional trips were generated within the corridor by redevelopment and new development. And the yellowish areas, parcels, all have new development. And we computed trip generation rates before tracks and after tracks, and found that they were 7.9% higher after. In other words, there should have been a 7.9% increase in traffic on 400 South and parallel streets relative to where traffic would have been in the absence of tracks. Different estimates of the effects of tracks, university tracks, ranging from 7,300 vehicles per day taken off of 400 South and parallel streets up to 21,000. We settled on 10,400, looked at the effect that would have on gallons of gasoline consumed, on CO2 emissions, grams of CO2 that were generated in the corridor, and came up with some pretty big numbers. And we're continuing. We have 7 new projects. A lot of them are related to our partners, to UTRAC and WFRC and so on. We have a lot of projects. One of them, which I'll mention now, is to find out what the long-term effect of the tracks extension to the university is. There's been so much building along the corridor, so many multifamily projects have been built. We want to see, and this is my belief, if traffic is still lower than you'd expect it would be had there been no tracks. I believe that's the case. So there are some studies we've done with your money. Thank you so much. We love your money. We hope we get some more of it today, and stay safe.